What is surprisingly becoming one of the top races on this year's ballot. 2 seats on the Public Service Commission. This is the state body which, among other responsibilities, sets the rates for Georgia Power. Both seats up for grabs were in Republicans' hands going into the race, and Democrats flipped both PSC seats. In District 2, Democrat Alicia Johnson defeated long-term Republican incumbent Tim Echoes, and in District 3, it was Democrat Pete Hubbard topping Republican incumbent Fitz Johnson. Meanwhile, the race to the finish line came out with a big win for Andre Dickens. 4 years ago, he needed to force a runoff to become Atlanta's mayor. This time, it was seemingly much easier campaign. Dickens fended off 3 challengers to knock out the convincing win at the polls. Another 4 years he'll be doing it as the city's top job. Last night, Mayor Dickens told backers there's still much to tackle in his second term.
I hope you're feeling so excited, Atlanta, and I hope for what we can do for the future for the next 4 years. And I hope you don't think that I'm going to slow down in my second term. No, you know me. I work from can't see morning to can't see night. If you know anything about me, we work all day, we work all night, and we get the job done.
All right, another interesting high interest race in the metro area was the president of the Atlanta City Council. This seat opened up when the incumbent Doug Shipman decided he wasn't going to seek re-election, and it was current City Council member Marcy Collier Overstreet narrowly edging out her opponent by less than 2,800 votes. It's time to go inside the numbers. We have Rahul Bali. He's the politics reporter for WABE FM. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
All right. When you look at Tuesday nights as a whole, how much of what we saw really reflects the local issues versus the national mood?
You know, we talked to the Democratic Party chair of Georgia, Charlie Bailey, and he said that, you know, these were nationalized, the issues around affordability. And again, as you mentioned, this was the Public Service Commission, which oversees power rates with Georgia Power. So making that argument that, you know, within the affordability, what people are paying for their bills, yeah, this was nationalized in a way with these races. But you're also hearing that on a number of local races. Housing affordability, that came up in the Sandy Springs race for mayor. It came up in the Atlanta mayor's race. So, you know, pocketbook issues, you know, that was very key to President Donald Trump winning. It looks like it was very key for a lot of the races yesterday.
Yeah, the turnout inside of Atlanta was stronger, much stronger than expected for an off-year race, right? What factors do you think drove people to the polls?
I don't think you can dismiss the fact that, you know, even though Andre Dickens, you know, didn't have any well-funded candidates against him, he still spent $1.5 million. We may end up finding out $2 million on this race. So he did put, you know, money into this race. And there was, of course, as you mentioned, the Atlanta City Council president's race, other open seats like District 2 with Amir Faroqi stepping down to fill the election to fill Marcy Collier Overstreet's. And then you had other competitive races around the region: Sandy Springs mayor, Roswell mayor, South Fulton mayor. So you had people that were coming out and this was actually one of the concerns I've been hearing from Republicans for months. You know, many of the voters in cities, in municipal elections are Democrats. And so they had that edge with those statewide seats, even though they're held by Republicans, that they were facing that wave.
Yeah, you mentioned the pocketbook issues earlier, right? Do you think this election was more about those pocketbook issues or more about party identification?
You can't, I mean, dismiss party identification. You know, there were some people trying to link, you know, to President Donald Trump. There was, you know, obviously conversation about the federal shutdown, but, you know, back to the Sandy Springs mayor race, you had local issues coming up there. You had one of the candidates talking about Sandy Springs having its own school district and immigration rates and, you know, local role that came up. So you had other issues. You know, there are obviously important local issues that come up over in, you know, we've heard conversations on some of the Atlanta City races about what to do with MARTA. You know, because, you know, you have the more MARTA tax. So you can't walk away from the local issues, but affordability, housing affordability, property taxes, those pocketbook issues are important. And what you're hearing from Democrats is that needs to be a focus for next year when you have so many big races on the ballot. Yeah. You've got John Ossoff's seat up for re-election, open governor seat, open lieutenant governor seat, and more.
Yeah, we saw flips on both sides for the Georgia Public Service Commission. That marked a significant shift. What was most likely the reason why Georgia's voters went that way?
Again, a couple of things that I've mentioned. First of all, you had strong Democratic turnout coming out of those municipal races. And then people, look, for those of us who've covered the Public Service Commission for years, there's always that struggle that so many Georgians don't know what the Georgia Public Service Commission does in terms of setting rates for Georgia Power, overseeing Georgia Power, and then other things that they do in that space. And those races are almost always at the end of the ballot, but having that at the top of the ballot and having that focus on it probably helped a lot. And again, what's happening in Washington probably had effect. There were so many factors, but those were some of them.
Yeah, 30 seconds left real quick here. You've covered a lot of Georgia politics for years now. And how does this election night fit into the bigger political picture that we're seeing for this election cycle?
You know, some of the folks I was talking to at Andre Dickens' party, which, you know, really people were talking about the PSC race. They're wondering if this is of a longer shift of moving toward Democratic politics. They were talking about what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s about Republicans winning small, what the word was, foundational races. Is this the beginning of that for the Democrats in Georgia? We'll see next year.
Yeah, we will see. Rahul Bali, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight today.
No problem. Thanks for coming.
All right.